Right, a very early evening, early morning, good night, or whatever to everybody. We're just going to get started here in a minute. I'm just going to make sure the stream's okay. I'm trying to amp up my stream quality as well in terms of performance, so hopefully that's going to work out. Okay, ears are going a bit weird. Settle down. Good. Okay, so I hope everybody else is having a nice evening and day after, well, a there and there patch. Like, it's gotten a lot of positive and it's gotten a lot of negative in terms of its quality. Your companion app went to the plan as well. Yeah, for some reason it happens. Like, I hate when I had to change my payment method because I had to redo everything. The companion app, had to redo my retainers, make sure everything else was done. All the while I had to relog multiple times to make sure everything actually balanced out. Okay, so following the trend that my streams have been going through, this is going to begin with a breakdown of my latest video uploads, talking about a few things that were brought up during it, answering a few questions. I'm also going to go through the comments. I've intentionally not responded to the comments in the video just so I could do it on the stream, just mixing it up a little bit. And I'm going to go through a number of different topics as well, especially some topics that have come up just recently that are, yeah, here or there. But as you can see right now, I'm sitting in the middle of the last vigil, or rather with a lovely, I was going to say lovely view, but there's nothing but fog. But yeah, it's usually a pretty view. It's one of the best views in the game, but not right now, unfortunately. You know, this view would be perfect if you could see a random Dragoon just standing here, because there is Dragoons still serving Ishgard. They're still roaming around. So I'd love one of them just standing there, just keeping vigil. Or standing here even. I'd say submit a report, Chrissy, just to make sure. Because it could be something erroneous. It could be something random. Like maybe it got cancelled without you knowing it. And maybe it's just sitting in between. Like, no system is perfect. It may be looking perfectly normal on your mug station, but there may be something in the background that you can't see. So I'd recommend just submitting a ticket. Submit it right now, even, because the EU team is not there, they're gone home, but the NA team would have probably taken over the shift. So they should be able to help you out with it. They're usually pretty quick when it comes to account queries as well. Okay, so I suppose I should start by referencing my latest video, which of course I should pull it up in front of me, just so I can actually see it as well. A lot of streams are popping up in my recommended, now that I'm streaming. Streams are actually popping up in my YouTube recommended, which is interesting. Okay, where is my video? What is that song? What is that song? Blue Fields. How did I not recognize that was Blue Fields? Oh my god. Okay. I'm not going to play it, but I just want to keep it open. Okay. So, let me open up the stream again because I need to answer questions. Okay. So, basically, my latest video was, or is, rather, titled King Thordan I and his Knights 12. So, it basically went over what we know about both King Thordan and his knights, as well as some things about the Dragonstorm War. It didn't actually start that way. I actually started it just about King Thordan and the Knights 12. It turned into like a 2-minute script video, and I was like, you know what, I can't not mention the Dragonstorm War in detail because their story is just so tied to it. So it ended up just as much being a tale about the dawning of the Dragonstorm War as well as their tale, because they're the ones that kicked it off essentially. And also going through exactly what happened in terms of how they did it. But as I mentioned in the video, we don't know the identities of many of these knights. As I stated as well, all the knights, well, there's 12 statues, and King Thordan are all listed here at the last visual. So you have the first two here, all spear and all sword wielders. It's interesting enough, there's not a single magical caster in their rank. So they're all either lancers, dragoons, or I'm going to assume gladiators. There's no paladins in their ranks, because all these temple knights are all gladiators as well, as far as I'm aware. Also, their shields are abnormally large. Have you noticed that? Look at the size of that shield. That is huge. That shield is bigger than me. And he's not even holding it. He's not even holding the shield. But I suppose they did that just for purposes, because they wanted the shield to rest on the ground. Similar to what you'd see in a medieval city, for example. But that's interesting. I've never noticed that before. But yeah, the shield is just overly sized. But yeah, all the statues of the Knights 12 are here. If I can get up the bloody steps. There we go. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and King Thordan there. But yeah, as I said, they're all either dragoons or lancers and or gladiators. Whereas the Heaven's Ward are a mixture of everything. There's lancers, there's the gladiators, and there's also two-handed sword wielders, which technically don't have a category. I know these people are wielding two-handed swords, but you don't have a category. We're just going to keep calling them gladiator. And then you have King Thordan, who is resting up here and has his big sword. I was pretty curious about that as well, because King Thordan, his statue here anyway, is showing him with a sword. But in the made-up fake tale, he's assumed to be a lancer, or a dragoon rather, because in the made-up tale, when King Thordan fell, Haldras picked up his spear, so he had a spear. But as we know, that's not what happened. Nobody picked up anybody's weapon, as far as we're aware. Haldras just used his normal dragoon spear, because as far as I'm aware, he was the only dragoon in their company. He was the first Azure Dragoon, but I don't think the others were dragoons. But we don't even know their names. So I searched everywhere. I searched all over the encyclopedias, online, all over Ishgard, talking to all the NPCs. But I couldn't find any details about the Knights 12 other than the what I listed in my video. Which is unfortunate in my opinion, because Heaven's Ward was years ago. So we would have expected some bit of final information in terms of just closing the book on it. But I think they just chose to close the book because it is just a tale. It's a very short tale in lore. Like, the main tales go about the Heaven's Ward. And all the Heaven's Ward are named, listed, all have their backstory and history. The first Knights 12, not so much. Like, we don't even know Haldrat's history. We don't even know King Thordan's history, to be perfectly honest. Like, their backstory is nigh non-existent. We don't know anything about them prior to them actually showing up and killing Ratatoskr. Although we do know at least that King Thordan was taken under the sway, or manipulated rather, by the Ascians. But we don't know the extent to which the Knights 12 were manipulated. I have a feeling that they just took their lord's command. The king ordered them to do something. They had no choice really but to do it. Like, you see sort of stuff in medieval fiction as well. Like, a king gives an order, you have to carry it out. If that king wants you to burn a village down, you burn a village down. So I think that's the reason a lot of them just said, you know what, King Thordan's dead now, I'm out of here. Get me away from here. And the only four that chose to stay around are the ones at the four houses that we see in Ishgard today. When you have House Fortum, Halinair, Durindir, and Zamael. They're kind of in order, like you see the four houses, 1, 2, 3, 4. But I have a feeling that Zamael got the short end of the stick. their house doesn't look as big or prominent as the others. Exactly, Will. The 4 that remained are the ones that essentially founded those high houses. They also helped to instigate the formation of the Orthodox Church of Ishgard, and also are likely the ones that spearheaded the tale to cover up the truth. So the founders of these houses are the main ones to blame, essentially. I mean, we know the current Lord Fortrump is a very noble man. Let's go in and see him, actually. But yeah, his ancestor, not so much. But we know that for a fact, that dragon's blood does course through your veins, sir. If you drink a bit of dragon's blood, you're becoming an Avis. Well, as is everybody else here. And everybody in Ishgard, as far as we're aware. But I'm assuming there's bloodlines in Ishgard that are still pure, that don't have the corruption. Well, yeah, you could call it corruption. I think that's the proper word for it, because it is not natural to their biology. So it is a corruption. But yeah, that's essentially that. But we're not going to hear anything else about Heaven's Ward as far as we're aware, unless something causes us in the main story to revisit all of this, which is not very likely. Harsefont resembles the Four Toms founder most, even though he's an illegitimate son. It's very true. He took after his father rather splendidly, didn't he? He seems like the most, but I suppose because he was he was the bastard. He wanted to prove himself a lot more, so he put a lot more diligent work into his efforts. Like, he fought tooth and nail to become a knight. So Harsefont went through a lot of stuff in order to get where he was, so he's the true heir in my eyes. It's likelihood that Mughals existed on the 13th, and if they did, what kind of void scent would they be? Oh, that's an interesting question. Now, if I recall correctly, there's no Mughals on the 1st. I don't think there are. But it's entirely possible that there were. They might have lived in a forest area, similar to how the Mughals of our world actually live in a forest area. And they might have been wiped out. But only the fairies exist at the moment around the 1st. So, do I consider that Mughals existed in the 13th? I'm going to say yes, because there's too many parallels between the species of one shard and the other reflections. So, for example, Lalafels exist on the 1st, as they do on the other worlds, so do the other races. It stands to reason that Mughals would as well, because a lot of different beastkin, vilekin, scalekin exist on the source as well as on the 1st, and would it be assumed to have existed on the 13th? So my answer is yes. I would have considered Mughals to have existed on the 13th. As to what they would have turned into, I would have said, given their power levels, it's kind of like a Dragon Ball Z reference, I would have said they would have turned into a lower case of Void Scent. So, similar to an imp, essentially. So, an imp is in the lower tier of the scale of Void Scent. So, I would have said they would have turned into imps. But, honestly, I think it's entirely dependent on the power of the individual. So, what they turn into depends on their, how much Aether they had when they turned, because Void Scent grows stronger the more Aether they absorb. So, yeah, I'd say a standard Mughal would have become an imp. Others might have become something different entirely. I really hope we get to the answer to that, because if we can start turning some Void Scent back into normal, I don't think it's possible at this stage. But anything may be possible if we do restore the 13th, which is not going to be quick. Okay. Now, I'm not sure if anybody caught the thumbnails that I put onto my latest video as well. I was actually just walking along when I was just thinking about the script, and I just said, you know what, I'll do some weird thumbnails, and for some reason I Am the Lies on Which You Suck jumped into my brain, and then I decided to do the thumbnails after that. Who would you proclaim is the most popular of the 12 as we are fighting them through midst of the realm? Who's the most popular of the 12? They all have equal representation in terms of lore on the world of Aetheris, essentially. Well, specifically for Eorzea, because the worship of the 12 is indicative of Eorzea. It's hard to say. They all have their own places because they all have a significant amount of worship from the peoples of Eorzea. Like Limsa Liminsa worship Limlane, Nothica, Gridania, Halone, Ishgard, etc. If I'm talking about a personal opinion or a player opinion in terms of the popularity in terms of a fight, it's hard to pin down. I mean, the new ones have been interesting, but I felt that the fights were too easy. I did enjoy Melfina's fights, but I'm still not a fan of her design. She still looks far too lolly for my taste. And I love Dalamud. Like, that's the best puppy ever. But if I was gonna say Halone is probably the best, because I enjoyed the fight and her design overall is amazing, especially with her really long hair. But also the fact that her design is almost identical to how the Ishgardians actually portray her in designs of artwork and also statues. So we can actually go up and see her now. So where is it? Yeah, here we go. Waiting for Golbez to be revealed as King Mog. I honestly wouldn't be surprised. He's going to be revealed to be something. I don't think he's just Golbez for the sake of being Golbez. He was something else, because he is a Void Scent. He didn't keep his normal form as far as we're aware when he transformed. So he was definitely something before the 13th fell. He might have been a lord, a main antagonist, a king among men. He honestly could have been anything, because he seems to be the main one spearheading the restoration of their world themselves. But you can see Halone's statue here. The very long hair, the shield, the spear, which is why she wields them herself. But her design is very linked to it, except for the visor. She doesn't have a visor in the statue, but nor would she. Justice in Ishgard, unlike with other countries, is not blind. But yeah, you can see that she has the flowing long hair as well, which is likely what influenced Halone's design by Fate and Dynamis. I firmly believe we get a Miser Grade statue of at least one of the 12, like we got for Omega and Ultima. That's entirely possible as well. I wouldn't mind a series. Like, if we could get a series of even smaller statues of the 12 entirely, I would love that. Could be related to Zero for all we know. Like, he might be a Memoriate for all we know. We haven't seen him do anything other than walk up and down in his HQ and sit on his throne. We haven't seen him fight. We haven't seen him do anything else. So, my opinion is he's definitely probably a Memoriate. Definitely probably. I did oxymoron on myself there. In my opinion, he's a Memoriate. I think he knows a bit too much. He's been around since the beginning. I think that's the reason. Are Reapers actually calling a Void Scent across the rift, or is it more of a puppet? Reaper lore is a weakness for me, unfortunately, because I've only unlocked it and I've probably used it like once. Because from a lore perspective, I don't like the fact of inviting a Void Scent to fucking inhabit me. I shouldn't have cursed there, I'm sorry. But I don't like the idea of inviting a Void Scent to inhabit me. I'm weirdly attached to my character. It's just the way I am. Reaper doesn't sit well with me. But they are inviting the Void Scent, as far as I'm aware, through them in order to inhabit this plane for a short period of time, to inhabit them for a short period of time, and then it goes back to the void. That's what the other Reapers have been doing as well. So it is actually just bouncing back and forth between the void and the source, essentially. Feeding on whatever Aether it gets when it's here, and then it bounces back. So that's the deal. Like, the Reaper gets the power of the Void Scent gets to feed on the Aether that he can while he's here, and then he bounces back to the 13th. That's the pact. I'd love to see art figures as well. Like, if we could get... Because, if you recall correctly... where was it again? Let me teleport over. That NPC that was added just recently, I think it was in 6.1 or 6.2. Hey, girl. So yeah, the NPC up here that gave us the artwork of the Scions and Chitaru. I wouldn't mind more art portraits of the 12, because it looks like he's going to be set up in order for us to give him more information in terms of what adventure you've been on lately. So we gave him information regarding this, and he gave us the Scions portraits. I wouldn't mind being able to tell him about the 12, and then he gave us pictures of the 12. In the same vein, can a Void Scent appearance change over time? Or have things that affect it, like why does the Warrior Light's avatar look like an ancient? I'm not fully sure, unfortunately, Shade of Red. As I said, my Reaper lore is very weak. I really should play it, because it is a gap in my knowledge, unfortunately. I do know Void Scent, but the Reaper Void Scent, not so much. But I do know we have a pact between us and that Void Scent. As to why it looks like an ancient, I'm not entirely certain, but I think it's mainly just because it is a unique variant of Void Scent, similar to what Zero was. So it might be a trait of, if they make a pact with a person, their form does change to suit the art of which is actually being manipulated, which is a Reaper's side and the Reaper arts. So that may be the reason that their form is different from other Void Scent. So it might have started off like an average Void Scent, like a succubus. It makes a pact with a Reaper, and it goes through a form change in order to better facilitate combat abilities for said Reaper. The 12 ultimate would be interesting, fighting them all. I agree. I agree in savage modes of Alliance raids. That's something I really want. Because it's the same fights, same assets, they're all there. Amp them up by 10 and let us fight them. Where was I? But yeah, the latest video I made is one I really enjoyed making. I enjoyed learning a lot about certain aspects of the Dragonstone War that I actually didn't know about. Case in point was, as I mentioned, the Forgotten Knight. So for the longest time, ever since I started, or when we finally got to Ishgard essentially, I always thought that this statue here, with its head broken off and its upper torso, was the inspiration for the naming of this establishment. But it turns out it's just coincidence that this statue was here, it's broken, and then you have the Forgotten Knight. Because that statue is actually of Saint Valorant. Saint Valorant, who was a dragoon back in the early days, and he died on the fatal battle. As far as I'm aware, he was trying to protect a village, and he died due to a draconic attack. And he was sainted as a result for his service, essentially. So that's how he became one of the saints as a result. So that's his statue, but it's just broken, unfortunately. Hope it's okay to ask, what's your accent called? I love listening to your videos in the background. I appreciate that, thank you. My accent is technically Irish, because I am Irish, naturally. But my accent is a bit weird because my wife is Canadian. So been married well over a decade at this point, and we knew each other far longer before that. So as we both interacted, I started picking up parts of her accent. At the same time, she started picking up parts of my accent. So my accent is a weird cross between a Dubliner accent, a native Irish accent, and then a bit of a Canadian accent where it just straightens out some of my words. So that's essentially what my accent is. It's Irish with a splash of Canadian. And it's something that's really worked out for me, especially in my professional life. But also in my YouTubing, happily enough. I'm glad you enjoy listening to me, because I've been attempting to actually fix my speech impediment for a while. I'm not there yet. It's going to take me years to fix it. But now that I've identified it, I'm taking real steps to actually get it done. I've been taking vocal exercises as well, just from interpersonal thing, like she sells seashells on the seashore. She sells seashells on the seashore. There's so many syllables in that one phrase that if I can say them properly, it'll really help. So she sells seashells on the seashore. Oh, you're from Northern Ireland. Nice. Chrissy Crillo. I think I've seen you in my streams before, Chrissy, if I recall correctly. Well, it's glad to see another Irish person here. What was I saying? I lost my train of thought. Oh, Will had the question though. Or the 4 archfiends, 4 lords, and maybe the weapons. That's a good point as well. I wouldn't mind a big amalgam fight between all the lords, because the lords, in my opinion, went out far too easily. We only got to fight 2 of them in a serious format. The other 2 were at the end of dungeons. Didn't really get to fight them all. Do you think we'll ever find out where the Garlean's third eye comes from? That's a video I actually plan to do sometime down the line. As I recall, the Gogans didn't have it. The Nation of Gog is a pretty weird topic because we don't actually know much about them. It's something I do want to research, so I can't answer that yet. Irish accents are hard to subdue. I definitely agree with that. Like, my accent is fairly normal because I live in Dublin, but if you go down the countryside, like down to Limerick or Cork or Tipperary, the accents really go through a definite change. I can understand them perfectly fine, but for anybody else, if you're trying to listen to it, it'll probably just pass right over your head. It's like listening to somebody with a very deep Scottish accent. Like, I can understand a deep Scottish accent perfectly fine, but anybody else will be listening to it just going, I can't really understand, because they talk quicker, I've noticed that, but it's just some of the words would kind of blend together to the point where an English speaker probably wouldn't be able to fully grasp it. Even though they're speaking English, they're speaking in a deep Scottish accent. So happily my accent's not like that. It never has been. I have a standard Dublin accent. But my normal accent tends to come out when I'm very excited or if I'm very angry. So if you ever hear me with a very deep Irish accent, it's because I'm either very happy or very angry. Any thoughts on the Garlean Empire Ultimate? Nero, Livia, Rotating, and Legatian up. The Empire Strikes Back. That's a lovely way of putting it. The Empire Strikes Back. God. Would they even get an Ultimate? Like, what's the next Ultimate that's supposed to come? What was the last Ultimate? Last Ultimate was Omega, wasn't it? Yeah, the Alpha Legends. So I hear you on the Scottish accent. I have Scottish on my mum's side. Yeah, Scottish accents tends to vary depending on which part of Scotland you're from. And it's also the same with Ireland. The accents just vary wildly. But yeah, it takes you a few minutes to fully understand it. Like, some people will probably be sitting there listening to a person talk across the table from them in a deep Scottish accent, and they'll be like, what language is that? So you have to grow up with it in a circular circumstance in order to fully grasp it. I do wish to receive the remaining legions, if they're even still intact. That's it's a good point. Most of the legions, as we know, are gone because the Empire is gone. But I'm still a proponent of some secret legions actually still being out there, because we haven't gotten information about all the legions. I think about 8 out of 12 or 8 out of 14 we know a lot of information about. The rest we don't really know much about. Like, we don't know much about the legions who went to the Eorzean Alliance, for example, midway during Endwalker, and asked for the Alliance's aid, essentially. And that's how we got Nerva. Oh, not Nerva. What the hell's his name? Oh, sorry. Sorry. I didn't mean to scare you. What is his name? I can't remember his name. But yeah, I still believe that there's legions around. They've broken off and became their own little sub-faction. So I wouldn't be surprised if we saw one knocking around Mericidia, for example. Or just in a different part of the world, sent out as a an exploratory legion in order to pick up information, gather new technology. Or they might be in some of the other regions nearby that they used to hold. So Naxia, for a prime example. Quintus, yeah, I think that's his name. Yeah, the man who... Yeah. It was Quintus, yeah. But we never heard anything from that legion. It was only like a literal 3 sentences that said the legion approached the Eorzean Alliance for aid. We never heard anything about them afterwards. They didn't return to Garlemald, apparently, as far as we know. I just want more cool armored folks. I want to see more cool armor. I fully agree. Like, I want to see more Garlean inspired armor, because they do have some very flashy armor. I'd say most of that is probably gone or destroyed, but I'd say there's a lot of it lying in vaults or hidden storage areas. I'd love to just get my hands on it, because Garlean armor is something special. And they do have some special techniques as well, like similar to what we saw of Gaius with his armor. You love the cute hat? Thank you very much. My precious Spriggan, who comes with me anytime I go to a live event as well. So if I go to Distant Worlds, he's always there. FanFest especially, I'll always be wearing my Spriggan as well. So I'm looking forward to this FanFest in order to wear my Spriggan again and to meet everybody as well. That's another topic I actually wanted to get into as well. It's... Need to make a character near you so I can come say hi. Feel free. There's probably going to be a chance for actually that coming up as well, because the EU is going to be getting a 3rd data center. It's not announced yet. I expect it to be announced probably in the next couple of months. So our 3rd data center will be coming. I actually plan to actually transfer over to that 3rd one. I'm not fully set on it yet, but I'm 90% of the way deciding I want to transfer, just for a kind of fresh start. Just kind of help bring a new server back up. Because I have noted that with the new data centers that have come in just recently with NA, they have been struggling because people transferred over and their economies never really stabilized. People tend to go to different data centers for party finders and stuff like that, so it is a weird situation. So I want to be able to do my part and transfer to one of the new data center, or the new one, when it comes out. So as I said, I'm 90% of the way there. I haven't fully decided yet. It is a big decision for me anyway. The Bosja armor was cool. Final Fantasy XII inspired. Not sure if you consider that Garlean. I would consider that Garlean, to be honest, because the Garleans are heavily inspired by the Arcadian Empire, along with the other empires, essentially, like the empires you'd see in 6 and the other games as well. Like, the Garleans take a direct inspiration from it, as they do from ancient Rome. So I would love to see more armors like that, because our armors are getting rather weird. Like, my armor's very old, but do I have yeah, my Gunbreaker's wearing, like, my Gunbreaker's wearing the new Alliance Raid one, which is really nice. I really like it. But that is a topic I wanted to bring up as well. I was going to bring it up in a different video, but I may as well bring it up right now. That is Northern Crater music. The topic I wanted to bring up is, are the new races like Wyrm and Hrothgar limiting what they can or can't do with armor designs? Depending on how well you celebrate the Empire, it's possible some legions may have stayed and just become part of the country itself. I fully agree. I think we're going to see one in Mericidia or even the New World. But more than likely, Naxia would have one of the legions. But yeah, on this topic here, I have an opinion that the armors that we see lately are compensating for, it's probably the best way I can put it, for the fact that Wyrm and Hrothgar still have issues in terms of their armor, because not all headsets they can wear, for example. Like, my onion helm is a prime example. My onion helm can't be worn by Wyrm and it can't be worn by Hrothgar. It doesn't fit them at all. Like, how would you get Wyrm ears to work with my onion helm? I don't think you could. It's just a weird thing. Like, I've said this in a previous stream, but I remember years ago, before Wyrm was even a concept. Well, it was a concept, but it wasn't official. And I remember saying, we're never going to get Wyrm because their ears wouldn't work for most of the armors that are in FF14. And they came along, but they still don't work, even years down the line now. Their ears just don't work. Like, it just... floppy, it doesn't work. I mean, they're brilliant models. I love Hrothgar and Wyrm models. They're brilliant. But I have a feeling that the latest armors we've been seeing lately are having to heavily compensate their designs because of Wyrm and Hrothgar. I mean, every armor that is put into the game needs to be changed somewhat for every race. So, for example, the chest piece I'm wearing is one that was added in the latest Alliance raid. This chest piece needs to be designed to fit my Lalafell, female Lalafell, and every other race in the game. So it needs to be designed to fit Hrothgar, it needs to fit Wyrm, it needs to fit Adnelazin, so on, so on, so on. So every bit of armor has to go through a significant amount of design in order to fit races and fit every size model, essentially. So, especially with headpieces, I have noticed the headpieces are very limited lately. So, I am of the opinion, like, here's, I have a headpiece here. So, this is the healing helmet from the Alliance raid. So, let me try that on real quick. Now, look at that. Look at this headpiece. It's a visor. So, this thing would work for a Wyrm, it would work for a Hrothgar, and it would work for every other race. But, that's all it is. It's a visor. This is, in my opinion, is like a perfect example of them compensating for the fact that Wyrm and Hrothgar are still broken and they need to design new headsets around them, essentially. So this thing needs to fit everybody. As far as I'm aware, it fits everybody. If a Wyrm wore this, I think they could wear it. I don't see a reason why they couldn't. But that's a prime example. So I have a feeling that creativity is being limited by Wyrm and Hrothgar. It's not Wyrm and Hrothgar's fault, it's just the fact that they released them in a broken state and they still haven't fixed it. I mean, granted, there's certain headpieces that are never going to fit a Wyrm, short of equipping the onion helm and making their ears disappear. Which, okay, valid, but yeah, it just doesn't work. And Hrothgar's heads are very different as well. So my onion helm is very spherical. Hrothgar's heads aren't fully spherical as far as I'm aware. I think it kind of protrudes back a bit. And we're going to be getting female Hrothgar as well. So that's going to be the last one. I'm hoping to the 12 that's the last race we get. Female Hrothgar. With that, I just want to scream to the devs, do not add another race. We do not need another race in this game. We have more than enough, thank you very much. I know people love new races, but anytime they add a new race, they add a significant amount of developer time onto it, because you need to make every armor in the game fit that new race. but you need to make every armor that you're going to develop fit that new race along with all the others that you've added. I think we're in a good place. We have a lot of good races. We have all the boxes ticked for great examples of races in the Final Fantasy universe. We don't need another. We're happy with the way we are. You can add new tribes and stuff like that, just don't make them playable. My Vieira FC mate is salty about the new Loporrit emote. Just, oh yes. Let me show. I actually had the video right here. So this video has been going mad ever since. So floppy. What's up with you? What's up with you? What's up? Alright, sit down. Go to bed. Go to bed. Go to bed. Good girl. But yeah, that video has been doing the rounds. It's sad, of course. But it's also, yeah. I mean, what did they expect? It's an emote that puts 2 ears on your head and does a floppy. But Vieira already have 2 big ears on their head. I'm assuming they thought that the ears would actually flop, but they wouldn't. But it's a classic example of Vieira just being a very unique race in that not everything is going to work for them. So not all armors work for them. And an emote like that doesn't work for them because they already have 2 ears and it just looks weird. I mean, if it made their ears disappear for a second and did that, I'd say it would probably work. If it made their ears disappear, but that would require you to make the ears entirely independent of the head. Which technically they already are, because you can change your ear style. But yeah, it looks janky, doesn't it? I mean, I remember laughing at it, but if I was a Vieira main, I'd say I'd be probably pretty upset. Where was I in terms of... But yeah, on to another topic now, because I have a feeling we're just going to make people more and more upset if we keep talking about Vieira. It's unfortunate what they are. Oh, nice crown. Let me have a look at you. Brother James. That suits him. I like that. But yeah, my text topic is... Where is it? Well, I've glamored over it, but the Manderville weapons of this patch. I can't be the only person here who was extremely disappointed by the fact that they literally gave us a repeat of what we just did. Most of us expected some sort of grind. Make us run 10 dungeons, fine. Make me do 50 fates. I love fates. I'd happily do fates. Making me just grind tomes again just to give me my next upgrade does nothing but annoy me. So the only thing we got out of this is a new weapon and a cutscene. That's all we got. Cutscene was good. I will admit it was an interesting cutscene. Not watching Geralt get oiled up, but watching him fight a very weak mammoth was pretty funny. But just another tome grind in order to do that. And I already had the tomes, so I got my weapon easily. And yeah, that's how I got my book upgrade. Just by doing that. I mean, it's not this weapon, of course, because it did look shiny, but I don't really like shiny weapons. But I was just disappointed. I wanted something else. I wanted something to sink my teeth into. I mean, granted, I do now have a grind ahead of me in order to grind out the rest of my weapons, because I'll need to grind tomes. But I was doing that anyway. We do that as part of our daily routine. My daily front lines gives me tomes. You got to play as Godbert. In the Manderville quest was very good. I enjoyed the new Manderville quest. I'm not going to spoil anything, but it was very good. And we finally got an explanation to why Godbert was actually running around in the trailer. We were waiting for that. But yeah, the weapon to me was a big disappointment. I'm not really sure why they chose to go that route. I'll be perfectly honest, it felt lazy. I'm sure they had their reasons for doing it this way, but repeating the exact same step that we just did of spending 1500 tomes on 3 meteorites. We thought that was the start in order to get our weapons, but then you made us do it again. I mean, people love it. Like, people are very happy to have easy access to weapons like that. And granted, that's perfectly fine, but that's not what Relics used to be. Like, Relics started with the Zodiac Braves as some of the grindiest pieces of content the game has ever seen. And it got toned down a tiny bit for Heaven's Ward, a tiny bit more for Stormblood. Shadowbringers was very good. I enjoyed the Relic grind for that because it involved Bosja. And this one, so far, is turning out to be meh. We still don't have a physical range DPS character on the main focus cast. That's very true. I'm hoping for a dancer. Like, if we could get a dancer in the Scions, I think I'd be very happy. I mean, I have noted from the lore that some of our other Scions are actually looking into other fields of study. Like, for example, I want to say her name is Celeste. Her name is not Celeste, though. What is her name? She's in here. She's in here studying... Where is she? Clemens. Sorry, I forgot your name, Clemens. I'm sorry. But yeah, Clemens is here studying astrologian arts, essentially. She's already an astrologian, but it turns out she actually plans to study to be a scholar next. She mentioned that in the latest event, or the Valentine's event, because she featured in it. She said she was going to plan to study to be a scholar as well. So I think the casts like this are going to be at the forefront. So I think we're actually going to get some new ranged at the forefront of our adventures as well. But yeah, it is true. Like, if we go into our trust, for example, none of them are ranged DPS, are they? So I doubt I'd be able to manipulate any of this to make it look like any of these are ranged.
If you insist.
I think she does, doesn't she? So if I take a melee DPS... Oh, I don't have a melee at 90, do I? Oh, I do. Sorry.
If you insist.
Ah, she's only a Reaper, okay. I thought she was going to be able to do something else. Yeah, I wouldn't mind having a range like a Bard. It would be nice. Or a Dancer. I mean, I wouldn't say no to it. We're still not fully confirmed about what Kryl is. As far as I was aware, Kryl was an Arcanist. At least I think she's an Arcanist. So with Kryl taking a new role, maybe she could do it, but I'd say she'd probably take on a caster role more than anything else, but the Scions have so many casters. Would you like another specialized zone like Eureka or Bosja for relic weapons in the future? You did a Zodiac weapon and you can't stomach another. The grind was... Yeah, the grind was unreal. But this actually goes to my next topic as well. A lot of people lately have been talking about the content drought. Now, I know it's not a very popular subject because, in my opinion, there is no content drought in this game because this game is chock full of content. If we're not doing any main content at the moment, we have years of catalogued content you could literally do. If you haven't finished Eureka, finish Eureka. If you haven't finished Bosja, finish Bosja. We have so many relic weapons, we have so many different things. So in my opinion, there's no content drought, but other people are talking about it like the fact that we have 4 months between main patches. I will admit, it does feel very long between main patches. And I mentioned this in my last stream as well. From one alliance raid to the next alliance raid is an 8-month gap. That's a severe gap. Do I have any crazy theories that might come for the future of the FF14 story? I have a million theories. I have not been quiet about my theories. One sorry. My tea is cold. As I've already mentioned in a lot of my videos, I have a million theories about what could or what will be. I am still a main proponent of the theory that there's going to be a time skip with 7.0. I still firmly believe that time skip is coming, that we're going to jump a few years for some reason, and then we're going to proceed from there. Our characters are going to go through certain levels of development. The world is going to see a few cosmetic changes, like Ishgard, for example, still looks the same. There's still bricks lying on some parts of the broom. This place should be cleaned up by now. Ugh. But yeah, I'm a firm believer that a time skip is on the way. But a crazy theory, other than that, other than the time skip, my other crazy theory is there's going to be a piece of content involved where we're going to be required to go back to the past. My main reason for that is another video I uploaded a good while ago, which was my theory explaining the fact that as time progresses in our present, time is progressing in our portal to the past in Elpis. My main theory for that, and my main excuse for that, is the Pandemonium Raids themselves. As the Pandemonium Raids are progressing, that is showing that time is progressing. Because when we go back, we're not always going back to the same time. Because if we were going back to the same point in time, we'd constantly be running into Emmett Selk, which is not happening. Time is moving forward at the same pace. So eventually we're going to intersect with the beginning of the final days, which is my theory that we're going to be going back to play some sort of part in probably preserving an element of Amarot, for example. The twins finally getting their growth spurt. Yeah, that's the other thing for the future theory as well. If we do a time skip, that would make them grow into more adults. They are, like, I know they're still young, but they're extremely short for Ellison. Does anybody not feel that? Like, even I'm a Lalafell and I still feel like a giant next to them. But yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them grow up a little bit. And my main theory for the fact that there would be a time skip is because of the major graphical overhaul that's coming with 7.0. So the game is going to look very different. So it's a perfect excuse to jazz everything up, make everything look like time has actually passed. That also makes me wonder, Final Fantasy 14, Final Fantasy... I'm seeing that's 16, isn't it? Yeah, that's 16 crossover. Are we going to get a crossover? My opinion is yes. The world of 15 and the world of 14 are very different. Like, they have... 15 has computers, they have technology and stuff like that. We have some of that, of course. Alligans, Garleans. But I think 16, the way its plot is actually moving into, it links a lot up with 14. So I think a crossover between 14 and 16 is highly likely, especially by the fact that the same producer is actually directly, like, Naoki Yoshida is involved with both projects. So I think it's highly likely. The projects are almost joined at the hip, essentially. Excuse me. But yeah, I would love to see it. And I'd also love a Final Fantasy VII remake crossover. Like, even a small event. I'd love that. Ellison don't hit their full height until around 20. The twins are 16 at the start of A Realm Reborn. And they haven't aged a day since, have they? The only way that we actually show their ages is with a changing of hairstyles and a changing of outfits, which is a very clever tactic if you think about it. The models don't change, but you can make them look and act more mature based on their voice dialogue, their dress, their hairstyles, and the art that they're picking up. So they did an incredible job of making them much more mature than they actually are. It's like Ash Ketchum. He changes his outfit every season, essentially. Changes his cap, changes his Pokemon. Makes him seem more mature without him constantly being reminded that he's always 10 years old. He doesn't age. How do you feel about Alizé and Alphino not looking identical anymore? I'm fine with that. Because they looked far too alike in A Realm Reborn. And that was actually, I recall that was actually a complaint. People were like, I can't tell them apart. They were too young to tell them apart. And honestly, if you dress them the same right now, if you put them both on the same outfit, you'd have a hard time telling them apart. I'm perfectly fine with them looking different. I'm happy that they actually do look different. And I think they're striving towards that, especially with their dress, their hairstyles, and the way they act, essentially. I also want to see Business Unit 3 make a tactical RPG, like a Salute to Final Fantasy Tactics or Tactics Ogre. I mean, as much as I'd love to see Creative Business Unit 3 do it, I think they have enough on their plate with 14 and 16. As we've seen with the latest drama with Square Enix, Creative Business Unit 2, if I recall, has been folded. The ones who made Forspoken. So they could be the ones to pick it up. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind a proper, full-on 3D remake of Tactics. Although, technically, you could call that 12. I mean, it's the same universe, but having a proper 3D one like that would be really good, because there is a certain charm about Tactics because of its simplicity of its graphics. But seeing it in the flesh in a proper 3D setting, or even just a semi-3D setting, would be nice. I haven't played Tactics in so long. It's such a good game. Tactics Advanced especially. Forspoken was made by, I think Luminous is technically Business Unit 2. Or Luminous was his own studio and now it's been folded into Business Unit 2. I'm not exactly sure what the news of it was, but I think it was Business Unit 2 was involved in it. But certain things are being folded. But yeah, Luminous essentially no longer exists. And Square Enix is in its own hot water at the moment when it comes to everything at the moment. Especially the CEO. Let's see. I'm not going to discuss anything else regarding this patch because that's spoilers, essentially. So I'm not going to go too much into the Loporrits. Although technically I could, but I'm not going to go into Eureka. I've already seen multiple floors of Eureka already. It's been brilliant. I have to say, the new Eureka has worked out exactly as I wanted it. From a lore perspective, I'm extremely happy. Extremely angry and extremely sad, but extremely happy for the content itself. So, the lore makes me upset. Ko, aka Noah, makes me very upset. But another video for her another day. She crosses my mind essentially, like Ko, aka Noah, as a quintessential Allegan. She seems very emotionally detached. I'm not going to go too much into it though. I don't want to spoil anything. So I'd recommend looking at the Eureka content if you haven't yet, because it is interesting. But yeah, I'll probably do something on that later down the line when it's a bit older. I don't like covering content that's too new because, yeah, I end up spoiling stuff and I don't like spoiling stuff anymore. There is something else I wanted to go into as well. Does Eureka reference the plot of Eureka and everything that happened? It doesn't reference Eureka. Well, it kind of references Eureka in terms of the naming convention. So, Eureka Orthros was apparently a place of legend in lore, essentially. Which is why the current Eureka that we had in Stormblood was named after this place. But it wasn't until now that we actually knew that Eureka actually existed and was underneath the Crystal Tower. I'm frankly shocked though that Grahatia didn't know anything about it. But I'm also of the opinion that maybe he did know something about it, but he chose not to actually tell anybody or get anybody involved. Although Ko's attitude towards Graha was a bit annoying to me as well, which is why Ko as a character, well, not Ko, it's Noah. Noah as a character annoys me. I mean, her new dress as well is... It's very flashy. It's elegant. Definitely elegant. But it just doesn't work for me. It's way too silvery. Way too glossy. You know what? Screw it. I'll show you who she is. I'm not going to dive into the lore of this, but I'll just show you what she is. And then I'll come back here and discuss my next topic. Oh, this conspiracy theorist. Don't get me started on him. Ugh. Delion annoys me. He's like that guy who's constantly just going, aliens, aliens, aliens. He's like that meme. Aliens. Oh yeah, there's a portal here. Burnell, take me to the Sentinels, please. Folks are saying this patch was lazy because of creativity 3 are focused more on 16 right now. 16 is essentially completed, though. That's the thing. It's mainly testing, polish, publishing, advertising, marketing that needs to be done. For the most part, they're just polishing stuff up. The game is essentially done. So it's in the last stages of its development, essentially. But that business unit is constantly busy. Like, even when 16 gets shipped, they still need to do patches for it. They still need to do bug fixes for it. And they have to support and develop stuff for 14 at the same time. Right, so here's Noah, aka Ko. I am not a fan of this outfit. I'm a fan of the elegant elements. Like, I'm assuming these luminous parts of our outfit are designed to channel Aether into them, similar to what a Black Mage's crystals does, and everybody's crystals does. But I'm just not a fan of her design. I don't like the open front. I'm not a fan. I love the collar. We have that collar already, but I'm just not a fan of the open front like that. I mean, it looks cobbled together. It looks like she just grabbed a bunch of random stuff out of the shop and just ran with it. It doesn't look harmonious. Like look at her. Her outfit is harmonious. Kind of harmonious. Well, these are players, but this doesn't look harmonious. It looks thrown together. I also don't like what they did with her hair. I mean, look at her hair. It's clipping through the back. Why did they make her have a ponytail? They should have put her hair in a bun or something. This color annoys me. It's another prime example of just like, why? Why did you do this? Why did you do this to us? My reason for all the questions, I'm wanting to get back into FF14 and deep dive into 16. But should I replay the older games? If so, which ones? The only games I can't play are 13 and 11. Why can't you play 13? I think 13 is freely available. It's on multiple platforms if I recall correctly. Should you replay the older games? I'd say if you can, play them. Like, if you have access to Zodiac Age, Final Fantasy 12, play it. It's really good. Like, explore it and get full experience and kill like the main bosses. Like, it's a very good game, especially for the story as well. Like, some people get annoyed about Final Fantasy 12 because of Van, but Van is like us. He's a person along for the ride, just like the player is. Like, that's what we're usually doing in a game like that. We're along for the ride, but then we're riding, essentially, we have Van. We're journeying with him and he's along for the ride. Like he always says, I'm along for the ride. That's why Van is a character I really like, because he's identifiable. Her outfit looks like one of my characters dungeon leveling up and just putting on whatever fits and boosts. That's my thoughts about her. Oh, I love this row. Look at that. That is a nice glam. That is a lovely glam. I have to tell her. I love your glamour. I don't have the console that 13 plays on. I think it's on Steam as well. It's usually very cheap as well. So if that's an option, I'd say go to that. But if you have 12, play 12. Definitely play 12. I can still remember before 2.0 launched, so in the gap between 1.0 shutting down and 2.0's launch, I was sitting in my sitting room on the floor, had my PS2 hooked up, playing Final Fantasy XII in order to get ready for 14. Because 2.0 mirrored Final Fantasy XII in a lot of ways, more than it mirrored 1.0. So I was playing 12 in order to get ready for 14. And I think it did kind of help me. It got me in that fantasy mood anyway. Oh, those outfits are just mad. But you can see there's a lot of people here and there's a lot of people enjoying the new Eureka content. One thing I didn't like about Final Fantasy XII was how you got the Zodiac Spear. If you opened up certain chests early game, you couldn't get the spear later. Not sure to change that in Zodiac. I'm not really recalling. I do recall the subject of that, but I didn't really like the spears in general, so I never really went that way. Probably a bit of a rush job from Rowena's. I'd probably say you're right, because Rowena isn't the one that did this. And she did specifically say she made this outfit because Ko's etheric affinity is very non-existent apparently. So she needed this outfit in order to cast spells. But I'm standing here going, why? You didn't even come into Eureka with us. You didn't need this damn outfit. The only reason you have this outfit is because you felt the need to change from looking like them to looking like this. And I don't like this outfit. I like some of the elements. Like, I like the design elements. Like, the glowing elements are nice. But overall, it looks like a level 65 person leveling up. And they threw on random things from 5 different dungeons. The PC doesn't run Steam. That's weird. Might be something to... You could probably just message them and see if you can get it done. But yeah, that's enough about her. I'm not going to go too much into that because I don't want to spoil it. I've already seen many of the bosses in this tier. It is good. I highly recommend, if you haven't, do it. One of my last topics though, I want to go back to Razatan in order to address this. Oh, good. I'm going to address this in a later video as well, because the next patch that's coming up is the conclusion of the story arc, essentially. I have a feeling it's going to conclude with 6.4. And 6.5 is going to be the patch that leads us into 7.0. So I'm going to talk about that later, but I mainly want to talk about something else first. I'm going to try avoiding too many spoilers, but I assume most of you have probably already seen this thing already. So there's a piece of side content that's been introduced alongside the major patches, so patch 6.2, 6.3, and a specific quest here where a Void Scent is in Razatan and he's giving us insights into the 4 generals of Golbez, and even Golbez himself to an extent. And he's telling us the stories as if he's already been there. But I'm firstly curious about who the heck this thing is. Because it's a Hektai, if I recall correctly, that's the exact name. But it's also made up of multiple Void Scent, or apparently, or just splits of a single personality. We don't know if this is a single personality, but I'm going to assume it's a single person, but just gets broken up due to what they are. But my main curiosity about this creature is the fact that it knows so much about the 4 generals. Like, if you're watching the quests, or if you're doing this quest, and you watch the cutscenes about the 4 generals, when the 4 generals individually are talking to Golbez in their own respective domains, in their own respective areas, in multiple areas around the 13th, you see one of the pieces of this hanging around in the background. And I'm like, what is this thing's connection? In that it knows so much about the 4 generals, and likely knows a lot about Golbez. But what's its part? Is it here just to tell us is it the narrator? Is it here just to tell us a story? Or is it something else? Does this thing have a connection to Golbez that we don't know about yet? Like, this thing could have been... It could have been related to who originally Golbez was, but the fact that it was know so much about the 4 generals, and the eyes hanging around in the background, it's just really strange. They might have just done that just to narrate it, just to tell us the story, because this quest was designed just to tell us a bit more about the generals. But I just found it unusual that this thing has access to creatures like that, which is unusual to me. I will be in my best behavior until I've forged a pact. It's nothing short of a dream come true to be in this world, and I'll do whatever is required to remain. Oh yeah, that's right. We ended that with him wanting to make a pact with somebody. Or, well, a pact with our world, essentially, so we could stay here. Fair enough, I guess, but... I don't know. There's just... something seems off about this guy. He's nice. I mean, he's a Hektai, but he's nice. And they all got along with us. They didn't try to eat people, as far as we're aware. Nobody was reported missing. But I suppose because he's on the source, he doesn't need to eat. But still, his story is just very strange. It's something I'm going to elaborate on in another video, or probably another stream, as we get closer to 6.4. With that, it's probably about just 2 months now. So I assume we're going to get a live letter in about as close as a month's time to tell us more about what 6.4 will be, and maybe we'll get some information about him. I doubt it, but I really want info about this guy. He is highly, highly suspicious. But anyway, was there anything else I wanted to talk about? Yeah, I'm not going to talk about the Loporrits because it's brand new content. I want you to experience that yourselves. Although I do enjoy it. The music especially. The first like 20 seconds of the music when I was listening to it, I'm just going, I'm not sure about this. And then the music kicked in and I was just like, okay, I like this. Xeno, I was actually planning originally with my last stream to actually chop it up and upload it as individual videos. But the stream quality of the last one was actually too bad. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to be chopping this video up, assuming the quality is okay this time. I amped up the stream quality as much as I could anyway. And I'm going to clip it and upload it. But it's going to be archived either way, so you can watch it when you're at home as well. So that's perfectly fine. But I will try and clip it up ASAP in order to cover some of the topics that I brought up. As I said, the reason for me doing that as well is because I've come to a decision that I don't want to make content that perishes easily. So I don't want to make a video and invest a lot of time and energy into a video. I mean, it's good that it entertains, but I don't like the fact that a video can go obsolete within a few weeks. So if I make a big theory video about the 12 and then 2 weeks later the 12 content launches, that video is irrelevant then afterwards. So appreciate it, Xeno, thank you. So I've decided to make content that will last a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, as long as the game lasts, essentially. I want to try and make content that lasts as long as possible, which is why I'm using the streaming platform now in order to discuss different theories, topics, and then clip them and put them into individual videos. So that way I can focus more on my lore videos, which is what everybody loves to watch. But essentially, that's pretty much everything I wanted to discuss. We already discussed my video, and we discussed some of the other topics as well, but I suppose I will close regarding FanFest. So, as you've probably been hearing for the last few weeks, FanFest is on the way. So we're going to get the NA FanFest first, then EU, then Japanese FanFest. It has been causing a fair amount of stress, for lack of a better word, for a lot of people, primarily because there is a lottery system for all the tickets now. NA went through a lottery just recently. EU is about to go through its own lottery. So I'm somebody who's been to every FanFest, or every EU one anyway. So I'm as apprehensive as everybody else about getting a ticket, but I do have a bunch of friends who are going as well. So in the event that one of us doesn't get a ticket, the other gets a ticket. I've already made an agreement with one of my friends in order to be doing this, but it's been causing a lot of drama in the community because of the nature of what it is. I mean, a lot of people don't recall what happened with the last NA one. So, for example, we didn't have a lottery for the last NA FanFest, which was, I believe it was 2018. They had the FanFest first, didn't they? Or 2019? It was probably early 2019. But the point I'm trying to make is the last NA sale for FanFest was a disaster. The site kept crashing, people were scalping tickets and selling tickets on eBay. It was, for lack of a better word, an absolute crap show. So people were begging for a lottery, but again, this was before COVID. So most people don't remember what happened before COVID. Like, COVID seems like a million years ago, and before COVID seems like 10,000 years ago, in my opinion. But people seem to have quickly forgotten that we asked for a lottery. We were like, we don't like the fact that this was becoming first come, first served. We want a lottery. We want a fair system. And now that we got a fair system, people are like, oh no, we have a chance of not getting a ticket. We asked for it. And it's to be expected as well. Well, as big as FF14 has gotten, and the events can't be very big, it makes sense to have a lottery. I mean, yes, it does suck if a person like myself, I don't get a ticket. I love FanFest. I go to every FanFest. Or if others don't get tickets, and then it is what it is. It is a lottery. It has to. It's the most fair system they can come up with. But it has been causing a fair amount of stress, controversy, anger. But it has been causing a number of issues for other players as well. Like, for example, with the NA one, people have been selling fake codes on the likes of eBay and other grey area sites. And people have been buying them. Even though there's no codes. We don't have any codes. Not yet. Or people are using their code immediately to buy their ticket in NA and then selling the code. It's turned into an absolute crap fest, essentially. It's turning into a fire festival sort of thing. We shall see what happens. I forgot to pay the lottery, but it looks like he would be rather fast. Oh, did you forget? Ah, that sucks. But honestly, Will, you're probably not too late. I have a feeling that NA's ticket sales are going to go to general. So you may still be with a chance to get another ticket. The main reason I say it's going to do that is because the FanFest controversy has brought up a lot of, well, it's brought up its own share of controversy, essentially. But the community has gotten so involved with it lately that people with active subscription accounts have been signing up to the lotteries with no intention of buying a ticket. So, from what I've been able to research and what I've seen people say, a lot of people have done that. So a lot of people won the lottery who never planned to buy a ticket in the first place. So what's going to happen is those codes are going to expire and those tickets are going to go into the general sale. So keep an eye on the general sale. The general sale is going to be more than likely going up. Like, it's not like with the last FanFest for NA where it sold out within a couple of hours. And I think EU is going to be the same. I think a lot of people signed up who had no intention of buying a ticket in the first place. It's going to hit general sale as well. But it also means less people who had a legitimate interest in going to FanFest are not going to get a ticket. Because in the end, the only requirement was having an active FF14 subscription, which pretty much every one of us has. So, yeah, it is. I get where Square Enix was going, but they chose the lesser of two evils when they made the system. Like, making the lottery, that was a great thing. The way they went about it, not so much. And then even the tickets are not even shaping up the way they're supposed to. The tickets are only going to have, well, I think they're going to have the, yeah, they're just going to have names on them. They're not going to have the account holder's name, for example. So they won't have my Square Enix account ID or name on it. So that's causing a fair amount of controversy as well. But it's calmed down. But it's going to start up again on the 15th or so when the EU sales start. I'm really hoping I get a ticket because I love FanFest. But as I said, we'll see. And I mainly want to go because I'm the administrator of this Discord, which is the FF14 Fan Events Discord. So everybody on my Discord, for example, is a FanFest hopeful attendee. So we all end up going to FanFest together. It's designed for people who would normally be facing going to a FanFest on their own. It provides a social system where people are able to meet up. They're able to meet up with me, other members of the FFXIV, have talks, have discussions, and enjoy the FanFest along with other people. And it's a system that's worked extraordinarily well. Like with the last FanFest for us in Paris, it worked out extremely well because I planned a pre-FanFest gathering, and there was like 70 people there. And a lot of them were on their own, so they were able to mingle with other players. Like normally people would be very shy about mingling with other people, especially at the FanFest. You'd be pretty intimidated on your own at a FanFest to approach a crowd of people, for example. But because they know that crowd is in the FFXIV, they're people like them essentially. But it gives them the confidence to approach people like that. We're even talking in the Discord beforehand, just going, I'm going on my own, does anybody want to pal around with me at FanFest? And they'd be like, yeah, I'll do it. And they end up doing that. So it worked extremely well for us in Paris in 2019, it worked in Frankfurt 2017, and it's going to work again in London 2023. You have to start over. That's a shame, but it's also an opportunity. Start over the way you want it, and play the way you want it. You get to enjoy it all over again. I'm a tiny bit envious, I'll be perfectly honest. I do have my alt character, which I've been using mainly for lore research, but it is a nice feeling to start over, which is why I'm planning to go to the new data center when it opens up, just as a kind of fresh start. What is this music? What is this music? 3, 3, 6. Ah, find your way from FFXIV. Okay. But essentially, that's all I wanted to cover in this video. So there's not really much else I need to cover. So, as I said, the rest of this stuff is too early in the patch to actually discuss. I don't want to discuss the Loporrits or Eureka any more than I've already done. Spoiler alert. That's Esther Gaza. I know that anywhere. But, I suppose if anybody... Oh, the last thing I wanted to do, sorry. So this is the last thing I wanted to do. As I said, I haven't answered the questions on the actual video yet. So I wanted to actually just go through it myself now and just see what the questions are and answer them live on stream as well. So, oh, here's Chrissy. Hello. Ratatoskr herself told Thornton about the power of the Dragon's Eye, among other things, in the spirit of understanding between their peoples. Is that true? I didn't read that. And while it's unknown if Thornton was planning to strike at the dragons prior to this, the attack on Ratatoskr came after she stated that Nidhogg believed that mortals were too weak to protect the star. Thornton seemed to think they were meant that dragonkind might try and take over from mortals. That's interesting. I never realized that. I'll respond to you after though. That's a good catch, Chrissy. I wonder if Gibberlongton, the Forgotten Knight, is the actual knight that walked away. If he was one of the ones that devoured the eyes, he may not age. That's a good thing to think about. I mean, we know that Haldrat didn't age because he had one of the eyes embedded within him. But that's an actual eye with a lot more power rather than a fraction of the power he took from Ratatoskr. It's entirely possible that the knight in question did actually live a lot longer. But 1,000 years? I'm not certain. You frankly have me curious now. I'm going back here for a second. I want to compare that knight with Gibberlond. Because I didn't actually compare the both of them, because I was under the assumption that they weren't. So, Let me go back there real quick and I'll bring up a picture of him as well. If it turns out they're the same person, I'm going to lose my lid. Okay. I'm going to highly doubt it, but... Alright, let me have a look. Gibberland. His hair color is different. Although, the Echo scene was in black and white. Let me find a picture. Give me a sec. Pictures. Okay, images, videos. Let's see. Storied events. No, that's not it. NPCs. Nope. Story characters. Sword in the Night's Rock. There we go. Okay. Here he is. Okay. Hold the phone. Here. Let me get a better look. Damn it. Where am I? Stop looking at me like that. Maybe if I go. Maybe if I do this. Hang on. Stop looking at me, dude. Come on. Just turn around. No, I'm not there. I'm not there. Stop looking at me. Damn it. Okay. Let me just try and get a better look at him. I mean, he does have a scar. The scar is the same. Doesn't have the beard, but it's facial hair. I mean, you could change that easily enough. Hair color, not so much. He has black hair. It is interesting, though. He has the same scar. Although, face... Come on, I need a proper look at your face. Would you stop looking at me? I'm miles behind you, dude. Come on. Don't play that. No, it's not him. The chin is different. Nose is a bit different as well. Look at the nostrils. So it's not him. But it's just really convenient that he has the same scar. No, it's not him. Well, it's entirely possible that he could have been a descendant, or it's probably just coincidence because he is modeled after him and he does the dialogue. So they probably just put the scar there just to tease us. So let me go back to that comment here. I checked. If I could type, have the same scar on their faces, but the facial features are different. Interesting. Interesting though. That's an interesting one. Like, I was almost like, I saw the scar and I was like, holy moly, that is not actually it, is it? Alright. It sounds noble, despite how evil he is, he and his father and their men were. For what they did, they murdered a friend of their kingdom, of their people, in the name of power, all because Thornton was disillusional and scared. Essentially, yeah. Like, they had the Ascian behind him as well. It's almost positive that he's an influence behind there, because he was an influence behind Thornton the Seventh as well. So Elidibus and La Habrea, and they've been around a long time. You completely forgot about the War of the Magi. Well, I didn't forget about it. It was in my mind. But the only reason I didn't mention it is because the Dragonsong War and Ishgard come after the War of the Magi. So after the Astral Era comes in, where the Calamity of Water happens, the War of the Magi essentially ends. I'm fairly positive some of the Elysian that migrated north to found Ishgard were part of one of these nations at one point. But no, I didn't forget about it, but it just wasn't at the forefront of my mind, nor was it the subject of the video. FF14 players. Me when I once again queue for the royal city of Rabanastre. Is it to be a fight then? I am only happy to oblige. So I'm assuming he got the reference I was going for. So the reference I was doing was, I have the intro. I am the lies upon which you sup, where I go over the fake tale. I am revelation, saying this is revelation. I am the truth from which you run, and you will be judged. Yeah. I'm glad somebody got it. Thank you. I think the pub is traditionally passed down between retired knights. I think that's a proper way of doing it as well. I think you're right about that. I recognise that music anywhere. I didn't know dragons had the power to... Oh, that's the only comment I replied to before I decided I wasn't going to do it. So, they don't. A dragon doesn't have the ability to enthrall people. So the lies went as far as they were saying dragons had the power of primals. Essentially, they gave any excuse to say dragons bad. We kill, essentially. He claims he wants to repent for his sins, and yet he went about killing more dragons to protect people from his evil deeds. How is that repenting? It was to protect the people of Ishgard from reprisals from the Dravanians that resulted from his and the knight's actions. That's not atonement. Real atonement is trying to make peace for the wrong party. Both points are valid, but I think Haldrath passed the point of no return, so the only way he was choosing to atone was in his own mind, essentially. Haldrath is not a hero. He is still an evil being, along with the others, who murdered an innocent dragon and mutilated her and took her eyes. And I suppose they just found no way back because of what they did in Nidhogg as well. They crossed the point of no return when they killed Ratatoskr. There was no excuse they could have said to say, okay, we're sorry, can we have peace again? Not going to happen. After what Nidhogg did as well. Nidhogg descended upon them and they had to go through a massive fight and they plucked out his eyes. I assume they just thought there's a path of no return. We've doomed our people now to a war that could probably rage on for generations, which it did. So Haldrath repenting, he wasn't repenting for the dragons. He was repenting for his own people. He was finding repentance in their eyes by helping them and defending them from the Dravanian horde. Ask Gibralont himself, what do you do here? I did. I asked him that before. So, what do you do here? Being that it's my tavern, I suppose I can do whatever I please. For the most part, I dispense drinks and advice as the situation warrants. Wasn't always so. I did my duty, took my wounds, and hung up my shield. As did the owner before me. You might call it a tradition. They say that the sir who built this tavern was happy to be forgotten. Rather serve ale instead of steel. Had a way with words he did, and with women. But that's a story for another time. So, this dialogue here is what made me realise that the Sir was actually one of the Nice 12. But it also made me realise that the bloodline, his bloodline was passed on because he had his way with women, essentially. So, this made me realise that the bloodlines for the Lowborn were so entangled with dragon blood as well because of him and probably the other knights as well. But yeah, you are absolutely right, Chrissy. It's become a tradition, but an Elysian, as far as I'm aware, only lives about 80 to 100 years. So it's been over 1,000 at this point. So it's been a hell of a long tradition, but I suppose it just started that way. So the first Sir Knight of the Nice 12, nobody knew he was that, passed it on to another soldier or another knight, and then they just continued the tradition from there. It was interesting though when I found it out. I looked all over Ishgard for other hints, but I didn't find any. So, as far as I'm aware, there's no other evidence of the Nice 12 around Ishgard at all. that would make any sort of sense. This is the other reason I want the time skip as well. Broom looks exactly as it was when 3.0 launched. It's still in ruins, still in bits. There's still people picking up rubbish and trying to move these ruins around. A time skip to clean all this up and make Ishgard look like it was supposed to. Because we already know that significant progress was made because the new housing district of the Firmament was made. So why not the rest of this place? But yeah, that's essentially everything I wanted to go through. I don't think there's anything else I wanted to go through. I've pretty much answered the comments, but I'll answer the rest of them after. There's not really much else to answer. There wasn't really that many comments either. If you haven't seen yet as well, actually I only noticed it today, that Discord is now available on PS5, which a lot of my friends are actually really happy about. So if you play on the PS5, you have much easier access to Discord now. I don't think you're able to stream, but I might be wrong. But anyway, that's everything else, and we're essentially done. My dog is getting pretty antsy at the moment, so I need to walk her as well. Come here, come here, come here, come on. Up, 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 up. Here we go. Hello. Hello. What's the story? What's the story? You getting antsy? You wanna go for a walk? Yeah. Alright, everybody, that is all I wanted to go through. As I said, I will try and chop this video up, assuming the quality was okay. I'm hoping it is. I tried to ramp up the quality. And I'll try and clip it and upload it, but as of right now, I'm working on my next video. I'm not going to mention what it is yet, because I actually have 2 videos in the works. I'm not deciding on which one I'm going to make yet, because one of them will easily be my largest video I've ever uploaded. And the other is an interesting concept I've only thought about, but I still need to flesh it out. So with that, I wish everybody a very good evening, good morning, good afternoon. And after my next video is uploaded, I'll likely do another stream. Or if there's enough topics and discussions, that warrants just a stream on its own. But anyway, people, I thank you very, very much. And have a good one. Have a good night, morning, afternoon.